Hello Tech Pros, episode 236. Welcome to the podcast where every day of the week we publish another conversation exploring the anxieties, challenges, and opportunities that technical professionals and entrepreneurs face when building their career, building their products, and building their business. There are a lot of shows that focus on the nuts and bolts of technology, but this podcast is not one of them. This is about the people behind the tech industry and the mindsets and skill sets they developed that led to their success. You can learn more about this podcast and our guests at hellotechpros.com, and I invite you to read my personal story of overcoming social anxiety at anxietynerd.com. All right, let's get started. Hello Tech Pros, this is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to be here on part 3 of our 5-part series called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Software Development Team. Now, this series is modeled after the book by Patrick Lencioni. It's a fantastic book, highly recommended. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. You can find it on Amazon or Goodreads or anywhere else where you purchase books or Kindle books or anything like that. 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. I'll link it up in the show notes page for this episode, but it is a fantastic book on leadership and on team development in general, regardless of if you're in software development, if you're in IT, if you're in a completely different field. It is a book that kind of, it really gets to the heart of team dynamics in general, and not necessarily what makes a great team, but what can destroy a great team and make it completely dysfunctional. And Patrick goes on to describe these 5 pillars, these 5 attributes that can really break a team down and destroy them. So throughout this series, I've modeled the same information from Patrick's book and put together this 5-part series specifically about software development teams. My background is in software development, and I've seen, well, honestly, unfortunately, too many dysfunctions amongst software development teams, but I thought I would really take apart and break it down into the 5 dysfunctions that I've seen over and over and over again in software development teams. If you want to get access to the entire series, the entire 5-part series, so you don't miss any of the dysfunctions of a software team, you can go to hellotechpros.com/team. That's hellotechpros.com/team. So a quick recap. First of all, Patrick Lencioni, in his first 2 chapters or first 2 dysfunctions that he described, the first one was the absence of trust, and the second one was fear of conflict. In my series, the first 2 dysfunctions that I described on this series, and again, go check it out at hellotechpros.com/team. The first one is cowboy coding, and it really creates an environment where undocumented spaghetti code without business priority or team knowledge gets built and gets spread around. And in that environment, it's harder to support. It's more costly in the long term. There are bigger security holes and more single points of failure. And the horrible thing is that cowboy coders are really high-performing individuals. They're in many cases rock stars. They want to get things done, and they're highly proactive and productive, and they write a lot of code, and unfortunately, their style of teamwork sucks. Absolutely sucks, because they're trying to be superheroes, and they're trying to just go out and solve all the problems and do it all themselves, take on all the pressure themselves, either because they don't trust the other team members or because they're just trying to make some progress. But unfortunately, this environment where cowboy coders exist, and I am guilty, I'm the biggest guilty party here, absolutely called myself out in past, is a big problem and can lead to bigger and bigger problems as your company's trying to scale and as your products are trying to scale and as you're trying to maintain a lot of legacy code. It can be very difficult. So you want to check out that one. The second episode, Patrick Lencioni's second chapter was about the fear of conflict, and mine was very similar to that. So the second episode in this series was about social anxieties. Now, I have struggled in the past. My personal struggle is very deeply resonates with this particular episode, with that particular episode, because I struggle with social anxiety disorder. So there was a lot of fear of conflict and fear of judgment and imposter syndrome and not wanting to rock the boat and not wanting to piss people off and not wanting to challenge my seniors or my leads or my architects or my managers. And instead, I was building inferior solutions because I was in a position where the team was not benefiting from my ideas. And I think there's a lot of challenges with not necessarily social anxiety disorder, although many people struggle with social anxieties. So there's just this anxiety at work of, you know what, I've got a great job here. I don't need to screw it up. I work on a great team, and there's really, really smart people, and who am I to challenge the status quo or to tell the CTO that he or she is wrong, right? Who am I to do that? And so on that last episode, we talked about these social anxieties that really generates, at the end of the day, inferior solutions. And these inferior solutions, unfortunately, are driven by the loud and proud, which are like the 25% of the team, the 25% of the team that doesn't struggle with these anxieties and have no problem being loud and proud about their ideas. And the rest of the 75% of the team is kind of voiceless, and they may talk about it, they may gripe about it behind closed doors, but they're not putting their ideas out on the table. They're not challenging management. They're not challenging the loud and proud. And that's unfortunate because at the end of the day, it leads to inferior solutions, and the customers can tell. So today, we're talking about the third dysfunction of a software development team. And first of all, to cover what Patrick said in his book, the third dysfunction from Patrick Lencioni is the lack of commitment. And Patrick really proves the point of, some cases we feign buy-in and we pretend like we're agreeing, but really we're just pretending. And that feigning buy-in creates ambiguity throughout the organization, meaning the big boss says, we need to do X, Y, Z. We need to launch this product. We need to switch technologies. We need to, whatever it is, adopt this process or not adopt a new process or not adopt a new technology. And because the big boss is the big boss, we don't want to challenge it. And when we don't challenge it, we just kind of, yeah. And we pretend like we're bought in. We might head nod. We might verbally agree, yeah, that sounds awesome. That sounds great. I bet that's going to work. I can't wait to... But meanwhile, we're not living it. We're not bought into it. We're not sold on it. We're not excited about it. We're not passionate about it. We're just like, well, we'll see if it works or not. And when we think we'll see if it works or not, that message spreads throughout the organization, and there's a lot of ambiguity because, hey, if the big boss says we're going to do this, and meanwhile the dev lead says, yeah, well, we'll see how it's going to work, then what's the developer going to do? They're going to, I don't know, are they in? Are they out? Are we straddling the fence? That was the point that Patrick was making. I don't see that as much. I see ambiguity leading from this social anxiety that we talked about in the last episode. But really, the biggest problem that I want to talk about in this area is confirmation bias. Now, what I mean by that is that we waste a lot of time and energy focusing on our personal preferences or the things that we've discovered through history, the challenges that we've solved or the challenges that were not solved by trying a certain method. And we waste so much time and energy focusing on these things and arguing about these instead of listening to other people and being more empathetic. So I think in the tech world, especially in software development, we have almost, in some cases, the opposite of lack of commitment, right? We are extremely passionate and extremely committed to our thing, our technology, our code base, or whatever it is. We are fanboys left and right. Software developers are extreme fanboys and fangirls for their area of expertise. We all have an area of expertise that we know and we like and we trust because we have good experience on one platform and not so good experience or no experience on another platform. Now, man, it gets really, really frustrating for me because I see it all the time in every company that I've worked at, in every environment, no matter how good the culture is, no matter how many smart people are on the team. This confirmation bias can absolutely eat us up and destroy the productivity, destroy the teamwork that's going on there, because we end up having these religious debates, right? .NET sucks. Microsoft sucks. We need to go Java. We need to go open source. Okay, cool. Maybe not. I don't know. It depends on the organization. Java sucks. Open source is unsupported, right? I don't know. Just there's back and forth and back and forth. Every technology has a point. It has a purpose. And I really struggle with, I didn't want to name particular technology stacks or dev stacks because I know you guys and girls are extremely passionate about yours of choice. And there's a few people that are going, I don't care, whatever, it doesn't matter. But there's a great number of people that said, absolutely right, .NET sucks, it's horrible, it's the worst thing since ever. And there's other people like, oh, come on, man, it's so easy, the tool sets are awesome, and blah, 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 blah. We have these preferences. And what happens is whenever we see new data or we have new experiences, just as human beings, what we tend to do with our confirmation bias is look for things that confirm our biases. We look for things that confirm our preferences. For instance, if back in the day in .NET 1.1, you tried to use it and it was horrible and there was no good way to edit your cascading style sheets, you might say, .NET sucks. Visual Studio sucks. Like it's the most horrible thing ever. You can't even edit CSS sheets easily. Like if you don't know what you're doing with CSS, you can totally destroy everything. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not, but things have changed since .NET 1.1. If you have no experience in open source technologies, you have worked in big companies, big organizations that spend bazillions of dollars on Oracle and Microsoft and all the other big vendor platforms and the big vendor tool sets, then those are the tool sets of choice for you, maybe because that's just what you're used to. And you don't trust Rails, and you don't trust Apache, and you don't trust other things because you're just not used to them. You have no idea how they're configured. You have no idea how they're secured. You have no idea how to scale them. You just see blogs and articles and these nifty little tech startups in Silicon Valley doing this stuff, but you don't see how it's applicable in your job role. And I'm kind of bringing these things out because I've heard both of those arguments many, many times throughout my career. But it could be anything. It could be design patterns. It could be way down in nitpicking the syntax of the code. Whatever it is, it's just about really. There's a lot that goes on in our craft where there's 1,000 different ways to solve a problem. And the great thing about our career, the great thing about software development is that there are 1,000 different ways to solve any problem. The horrible thing is that there's 1,000 different ways to solve any problem. And what we have to do sometimes is make a compromise with the rest of the organization, make a compromise with the other developers in order to make forward progress and just get something done. Now, I know I just pissed off a lot of people because I said we got to make compromise. And there's a lot of developers out there that are extremely passionate and say, no, we absolutely should never, ever compromise. We should never compromise on bad design. We should never compromise on security. We should never compromise on maintainability or structure or XYZ. Well, what happens if party A never compromises and party B never compromises because they're both right, because they both have extremely valid points and they both have extremely valid experiences? They both know a lot about what they're talking about, but they're not looking at each other's perspective. What happens in that case when we are when we do not compromise and we do not make allowances for what the other person could bring to the table or bring to the solution, is we lock out awesome solutions and we pigeonhole ourselves into a certain way of thinking. It becomes really, really difficult to think outside the box if your box is limited to your own creativity and your box is limited to your own experiences. We end up many times, unfortunately, building homogenous teams instead of diverse teams. Because when we're hiring, when we're recruiting, we tend to look for people who think like us, and literally who look like us, and who act like us, and who dress like us, and who are the same, sometimes gender as us, or same race as us. And that is horrible. We need to have diversity across the business, across the industry, across every aspect of what's going on at work, what's going on in the software development space. We need people from different cultures. We need people of different beliefs and genders and backgrounds and experiences and education and everything. In my opinion, we need to have a lot more diversity, extreme diversity in many cases, because we tend to hire people that act just like us. Now, maybe you work on a team that doesn't have that problem. Awesome, fantastic. Blog about it, podcast about it, show videos about it, because that whatever organization you're in needs to have a spotlight on it. And you need to show people what an awesome diverse team looks like and what an awesome diverse team feels like and what it sounds like, so that we can all grow and we can all learn from your experience. But unfortunately, I've seen so many times whoever is kind of the in-charge person, that big boss, if that big boss is starting a new team from scratch, many times a big boss will hire people and look for people who have the same thought process as the big boss. Well, what happens is the big boss, in this case, let's say I'm a hiring manager and I believe in certain technologies and I believe other technologies are bad. Who do you think I'm going to hire? If I have strong convictions on, let's say that we have the choice between Java or .NET, and it's really on the fence. We're growing a new thing. We could. Why am I picking on Java and .NET? I mean, there's a million different platforms out there, but there's a million different platforms. But in my head, it really comes down to one of those two, right? Because of my experience. So let's just say it the way it is. Because of my experience, Chad has a lot of experience in Java, a lot of experience in .NET. And so as a hiring manager, building up his new platform, building up his new team, building up his new software as a service, I'm going to hire people. I'm going to put out a call to action for software developers, come join my team. And then a person comes and says, hey, I've got some really kick butt experience with Ruby. And I go, I don't know nothing about Ruby. Literally, I never used it. I know people like it, but I've never used it. Therefore, can I trust it? Do I believe in it? I don't know. Another person comes and says, I love Go. We should build a lot of stuff in Go. And I'm like, well, I know a little bit about Go because I've interviewed some Go programming developers on this podcast. I know Aaron Schlesinger of Go in 5 Minutes, his video podcast. But do I really think that my platform is going to have all that back-end sexiness that Go benefits from? I don't know. Maybe not. So my personal preferences and my personal experience is going to tend to skew my answers and skew my results towards the things that I like and the things that I trust and the things that I know. And so as an individual, as a leader, as a team member, we have to be very, very careful about not challenging each other, because I think we do a good job of that in many cases. And in other cases, go back to the prior episode and look at social anxiety. When we're not challenging each other, it's because of social anxiety. When we are challenging each other to the extreme, or just not looking at the other party's point of view, it comes from this confirmation bias. Gosh, I can't talk today. We waste so much money on broken solutions We spend so much money putting more and more effort into refactoring a broken solution rather than just pulling out, starting from scratch and saying, you know what? Let's really think outside the box. What's the right solution here? Do we even need this thing anymore? Like, who uses this? Do we need to support this code base anymore, or can we get rid of it? Can we deprecate it? Can we delete it? Can we archive it? If we are going to touch it, do we really have to put more and more time and effort into this technology, this platform, or do we just need to start from scratch? When I say start from scratch, I don't mean, I've got a little function or method I need to rewrite. I need to refactor. I'm talking about big on the scale of the entire team or the entire organization. Is what we're doing working out, or is what we're doing what was working out 10 or 20 years ago? And now we're in a completely different world. We're in a completely different industry. But we have so much investment here. We don't want to pull out. Okay, that's your confirmation bias talking. That's hey, what worked in the past will work again in the future. We just need to put more dollars into it. Sometimes that's the case. I've seen many companies that say, you know what, we need to implement some huge system, like a big ERP. Why? Because I came from like the new CTO, the new CIO, the new whoever, accounting person, the new HR person. Someone says, we used to use the software back at my old company, and it was amazing, and it had all the bells and whistles, and it solved all these problems that you guys are talking about, and so we need it here too. And that confirmation bias can sometimes be, hey, what worked in my old company will work in your company too, or this new company that I'm in. Maybe that's the case, maybe that's not the case. Do you really know enough about the current organization to make that decision, to make that recommendation? We have this sunk cost fallacy, right? So we believe that because we have put thousands of hours, millions of dollars, whatever the cost is that we've put into this, we don't want to pull out. Like, hey, it's this thing is too expensive to refactor and restart and to move a different direction because we have all this cost poured into it. All of our infrastructure is set up to support it. All of our developers are trained on this language, trained on this tool set. It would cost us basically the entire organization to start over. We can't afford that. Is that really the truth? Like, first of all, if you have to send all of your developers back to college 4 more years to get a different degree to switch languages, you're doing something wrong. Like, your organization is unhealthy. But there are times to make radical decisions and go a different direction. And there are times, absolutely, when you should stay the course. My point here is that many times we look to just our beliefs, and we don't look at the raw data. We look to our beliefs, and we're not looking to outside opinion, outside influence. We're looking to our own experience instead of looking at case studies across other competitors or other industries where it's really it would really behoove us to take a look at that data and take a look at those experiences from other people. When we have confirmation bias, we also tend to try to be palm readers, right? We try to predict the future, and we look at a situation and we say, I can tell you exactly what it's going to take. I can tell you what the odds are that this is going to work, or the odds that this is not going to work. And because we have a lot of experience in one area, we tend to put a disproportionate amount of weight on making the prediction that our history, our experience is correct, right? So all of the things that happened to us in the past, when we put our estimates together, when we put our odds together on how this new product is going to work, or whether or not the customers are going to like it, or how much time it's going to take to develop, we of course use our experience as a baseline to predict those odds or predict that timeline. And sometimes that's right, and sometimes that's completely way off base because, again, we're we're not taking into consideration all the factors, right? This is a different environment. This is a different industry. This is a different customer. This is a different technology base. And we tend to predict things wildly inaccurately as software developers, extremely wildly inaccurately. And then later on in the project, it's because, well, there was scope creep, or, well, there was, the other people couldn't keep up with what was going on. They couldn't keep up with the changes. The new team couldn't, or the old team couldn't change the methodology and be more agile and be more reactive to what was going on. Whatever. There's a lot of excuses that we can make, but just in general, we suck. Developers suck at predicting things. We suck at predicting estimates, especially, and we use our confirmation bias as kind of a a guideline of how long the project's going to take, or whether or not it's going to succeed or fail. But in some cases, and not every case, again, this is just some cases it's extremely bad to just make a guess based off of our gut feel and based off of our individual experience. So what I want us to do here is just to bring the team together and have more discussions. That's what it's all about. It's not about this decision is right or wrong, or that we as individuals are right or wrong. It's that we need to have more open and honest discussions about the situation and try to get as many diverse pieces of input as we can, right? So a scientist, if they're doing a drug study, right, testing out a new pharmaceutical drug, and testing it in rats look good, and they're like, okay, the next test is in humans. They tested on one person. They tested on me, on Chad, and it works for me. Does that mean that drug's going to work for you? Maybe, maybe not. I hope they do a lot more testing before they release it out to a wider audience, right? So same thing with software. We tend to we like working on things in a vacuum. We like solving these problems because we are tinkerers, because we're problem solvers, because we're puzzle solvers, and we love doing that. And regardless of if you're software development, or if you're in architecture, or if you're in, no matter what field you're in IT, we're all problem solvers, and we love solving puzzles. But the problem is, once we figure out a nifty, neat way of solving puzzles, we tend to want to use that same method over and over and over. What I'm saying here is just be more diverse, be more open to other people's ideas. If you have a preconceived, like if you hear in a meeting, oh, here's this problem, and you immediately think, I've got the solution, I've got the answer, don't necessarily just keep that idea to yourself. Speak up and say, I think it could be XYZ. And when other people at the table disagree with you, don't flame them. Don't jump down their throats. Don't throw down your pedigrees and all your experience and all your education to try to prove them wrong. So many times we get defensive, kind of going back to last week's episode about social anxieties. We don't want to share our opinion because we're afraid that other people are going to jump down our necks and beat us up. But on the other hand, sometimes other people try to voice their opinions, and all we're trying to do is we get emotional, and we're just trying to prove ourselves right. And when you try to prove yourself right, so many times it doesn't matter if you're right or not. The organization suffers, the team suffers, because now instead of trying to solve the problem, you're trying to prove your correctness. And that method is extremely ego-driven. It's all about me. It's all about my situation. It's all about me trying to prove my point that I'm awesome and I'm smart and I know what the heck I'm talking about, and all you people need to listen to me, right? I have done it. I've seen so many people do it over the course of my career. And I just saw a tweet the other day. It was kind of in jest, but it was like, look, I'm just trying to be here to prove that I'm right and I know what I'm talking about. And that's good. A healthy amount of that is okay to be correct, and we want to reward people for being intelligent and being creative and solving problems. But it's not about you. At the end of the day, it's about the customer. It's about the user. It's about the person who's going to be interacting with the software and what's the best experience for them. It's not about, is Chad's idea the best? It's not about, is Chad's code the best? It's about, can we as a team come together, share ideas, and come up with the best solution? At the end of the day, somebody's going to have to make a decision on what that best solution is. But did we give that person as much information as we possibly could, as much diverse information as we possibly could, so that they could come up with a well-rounded decision instead of a skewed decision, or a decision based off of skewed data? So if you're making the decision, if you're the decision maker in your company, and you're trying to decide, you know what, do I pick platform A or platform B? Do I implement API number 1 or API number 2? Right? Do I go public or private? Do I do X, Y, or Z? Right? What do I do? Look to people you know and trust, but also look to people that you don't know or you don't trust, and see what their opinions are, and see what their experiences are, and maybe listen to other opinions that kind of differ from what your natural reaction would be. Ask other people who generally like to argue with you. It's a great thing to ask their opinion and say, hey, I know we don't always agree with stuff, and you probably kind of disagree with my assessment, but I want to get your take on this. And I really, really want to get your take. I don't want to just start a flame war. I'm really trying to learn from this experience. Tell me your opinion in this situation, and talk me through why you have that opinion. If you're not the decision maker, but maybe you're a developer on the team that's trying to get some solution created or some decision made, and you're trying to pitch it up to a boss, or over to an architect, or to a team lead or something, or if you're just having a group discussion about it, your opinions and your ideas and your suggestions are valid, but also look around the rest of the table and outside the table for other ideas and other opinions that may be just as valid, and try to bring as much of that information to the table as you possibly can. Right? If you can be the devil's advocate for your own solution, if you can say, hey, here's my solution, here's why I think it works, but I've also taken a look around, and here's some things why it may not work, because I haven't thought through this, we don't have experience in that, I have no idea about how XYZ works. The more you can challenge your own ideas publicly and invite open and honest feedback to those challenges, then the better discussions that you will have at the table, and the better solutions that you'll create. So, right, we don't want to have social anxiety where we're afraid to get other people's opinion, but when we get other people's opinion, in this case, we don't want to discount it because we're struggling with confirmation bias. We need to, stop thinking about the stereotypes, stop believing the stereotypes, stop believing our memories, and start looking at the facts, right? Look at the new modern facts that are going on. We stop rationalizing poor performance because, it's poor performance, but that's because the users are doing it wrong. It's poor performance, but that's because, the data center is hitching up. Really, take a look at what's going on. And if we do all this stuff together, open and honestly, in a team manner, that's going to bring the whole team up to another level. Because when we're sharing our ideas, that's great. But when we're also sharing our vulnerabilities and say, hey, you know what? My experience in this area is pretty deep, but it's pretty deep and narrow. It's not very broad. So I'd like to get other ideas, other suggestions in here to take a look at, what is my idea pigeonholed into kind of play in the old tapes of what I know and like and trust? Or can we look at something different? All right, so that's all I have to say about confirmation bias today. If you sign up, again, if you want to get access to the full 5 dysfunctions of a software development team product, what is this? This is like a course, an email course, audio course. the full 5-episode course that we've got, the 5 Dysfunctions of a Software Team, sign up at hellotechpros.com/team. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/236. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. Is your website ugly? I mean, really ugly? Did your website fall out of the ugly source code repo and hit every branch on the way down? Is your website so ugly that Apple won't display it in Safari due to their human interface guidelines? Is your website so ugly that your CSS has no style? Is your website so ugly that even your mama won't bookmark it? I know a lot about ugly websites because, sadly, I've been building them my entire career. I've always made excuses like, it should be the functionality over the design. But what I should have been saying all along is, look, I'm colorblind, I'm style challenged, and I have no business building web front ends whatsoever. Luckily, I've worked with some amazing designers that have helped turn my MVP OS, or minimum viable piece of into websites that real humans want to use. And it's not just about complementary colors and rad logo designs. It's about connecting with your website visitors on an emotional level that engages the stickiness centers in their brain and makes them more curious to read about your products and then follow your call to actions. I invite you to check out the awesome tips that website designer Veronica Kieran gave me for the Hello Tech Pros website and get your free personalized website makeover consultation video by visiting HelloUglySite.com. Hello Ugly Site is definitely ugly, but your website doesn't have to be. Go to HelloUglySite.com. That's HelloUglySite.com. Since publishing episode 141 on how social anxiety disorder and depression nearly cost me my life, I've gotten tons of feedback from people who are struggling with similar issues. Anxiety is a big deal. In my opinion, it's not discussed enough, especially in the tech industry, where a lot of us hide from our anxieties behind the computer screen instead of learning how to address them. That's why I started writing a book on the subject. If you are struggling with anxiety or know someone who is, please visit anxietynerd.com. You can sign up to read Chapter 1 for free, as well as receive regular progress details so that you can hold me accountable to get this book published. anxietynerd.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Leadership Wednesday, but tomorrow my featured guest and I talk about technology. On Friday, people and communication. Saturday, entrepreneurship. Sunday, being unplugged. And then next week, we kick it off with Motivation Monday, followed by Tuesday, productivity. And then we're back again on Wednesday to discuss leadership. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.